So this cookie really is a very interesting one, and it starts with almonds. And I've chopped up here, about 3/4 of a cup of almonds that are just coarsely chopped. And then to that, I want some chocolate. And here I've got some of that chunk chocolate that I got from Joe Matata. And I want, about 2/3 of a cup of that. And you just want to chunk that up. And when I use chocolate like this, sometimes what I do is just put it in the freezer so it doesn't get too soft, because I want to be able to chunk it so it stays chunky. I don't want it too fine. So here I want to just give it a coarse chop like I'm doing, and it's staying together very nicely. And as I say, you want about 2/3 of a cup. And now if you don't want to use dark chocolate like I'm using here, well, then you could use milk chocolate. And then also for this, because this cookie has an interesting finish, I must say, we want to put some chocolate in a double boiler. So while you're chopping up the chocolate, you want to get some water in a double boiler. If you don't have a double boiler, then use 2 pans, one that will fit inside the other. And now here's my double boiler, you see, and I've got water in the bottom there, just nicely simmering. And in the top of that, well, I want to put, about another 2/3 of a cup of chocolate. So I'm going to take the rest of this. I'm going to eyeball this because this is about 2/3 of a cup. And I'm just going to put that right in there, you see, in the top. And then to that, I want to add some butter. And here I want about 2 tablespoons. So that goes in. So there's my butter and my chocolate. And now all I want to do is cover that, you see. And I want to let that melt. So I'll have to go back and check that and see how it's doing. So now there's my chocolate, and I think it needs just another little good chop. And let me go back to that story I was telling you about the bones of the dead. Well, you see, the Italians believe that their ancestors do come back to visit them on this holy night. It's almost like Halloween when we go out and get dressed up, and that's the night before All Souls Day. And this is a cookie that's made for that particular day. Now here I've got egg whites, 2 of them at room temperature, and that's really important. And now what you want to do is whip this up with a little bit of sugar, and I'm using confectioner's sugar. And now, sometimes what I like to do is get the lumps out of that, so I just run it through a sifter. So now you've got to start, you see. Start beating the egg whites, and as you beat them, you want to add, half of this sugar. Okay, now that looks pretty good, but now I got to check my chocolate here, see how we're doing. Well, you see it's starting to melt, but it isn't quite there. So now, you see how nice those are standing up and they're not just falling off of my spoon. So now I can put the rest of this sugar in. I have 2/3 of a cup total, and I used about 1/3. So I'm going to put the rest in, and then I'm going to put in, about 1/4 of a cup and 2 tablespoons of semolina flour. Now this is the flour that we use to make pasta. And now it's rather coarse, so I run this through the Cuisinart or the food processor just to get it a little finer. But you don't have to do that, and if you don't have this, then use regular flour. So I'm going to sprinkle that over the top, and then I'm going to scoop up all of these almonds, you see. This makes a very interesting cookie, and put that in. Actually, I have to say, this is my favorite cookie. And actually, I made this for a friend of mine from Cremona, Enrico, and he had never had these before. And it just said to me how regional Italian food is, because now here's a fellow who comes from Italy and never had this cookie. Okay, so now I've got to do a little cleanup here for the next procedure. So now what you want to do is get out a cookie sheet. And now here's mine. And you see I've just put a little butter on there, because now I want parchment paper. Let me put it this way so you can see this. And parchment paper you can buy in a gourmet food store. Sometimes grocery stores have it. And now I want these to look like bones, so you can do several things. You see I've traced bones here. You can make yourself just a little template. You see, I'm going to do another one, actually. Now, really, I want to turn this over because I'm going to draw on this side, but I don't want to form my cookie on this side, you see, because of the lead pencil. So I'm just going to make that outline, see, just so you can see it. So you can make these out of cardboard. That's very easy. And then turn it over and form them on the other side. And then, of course, if you didn't want a template, well, you could get really into it and make your own little bone cutters, and these were made by a friend of mine, Ruth, who is very creative. So now you can get into this, you see. So now what you do is take some of that mixture and just put it on the outline of the bone, you see. Well, then all you want to do is just fill the cavity, get it in there. Try to be a little neater than I'm being, you see. Just get it in there. And then, after you have it in, well, then you can just very, very carefully lift off this form. Now, this recipe will make, about a dozen and a half of smaller versions. I mean, you can make large ones or small ones. Here I'm probably going to get about 9 or 10. And then, carefully, you see, I hope that's going to come off. There, you see? I formed my bone. And now, those are ready to go into the oven. And you want to put those into a 300-degree preheated oven. You're going to have to cook these, for about 30 or 35 minutes. You want them to be fairly hard. And when they come out, there they are. And that is as hard as a bone. And now this is the part that I love, because this is where we do the glazing. And so you want to get out a rack for the cookies. And see, now you're able to take them off the sheet, you see? Just like that. And they're very hard. And there's my chocolate. And now we want to give those, a nice glazing of chocolate on the bottom. So you want to take some of that chocolate, you see, and just spread it right on the bottom of the cookie. So there again, I'm going to take that interesting little utensil. Don't those sound like dry bones? And just put that down to dry. Now those are going to take a little while to dry.